Ukrainian officials are urging civilians in the east and southern parts of the country to evacuate while they still can.
Yeah, this comes as Russia ramps up attacks in these regions. Ukraine's deputy prime minister announced that 10 evacuation corridors have been agreed to, including one to get people out of the besieged city of Mariupol. The mayor of the port city says the death toll in the region stands at more than 5,000. Many prior evacuation attempts across Ukraine have been disrupted by Russian forces.
Meanwhile, the international community is speaking out against Russian atrocities. Moments ago, the UN General Assembly voted to expel Russia from the Human Rights Council, while the G7 foreign ministers have jointly condemned the massacres, particularly in the town of Bucha. And the end of the conflict doesn't appear to be in sight. Russia's foreign minister reveals Ukraine presented a new draft of a peace deal the Kremlin found unacceptable. Joining us now from Ukraine is Illia Ponomarenko. He's a defense reporter with the Kyiv Independent. Illia, welcome. It's great to have you with us. So the headline of an article you wrote for the Kyiv Independent today reads, quote, Bucha massacre survivors. Why do Russians hate us so much? So what can you say to something like that? And what else are you hearing from these survivors?
What we have seen in Bucha was so fearsome, so unbelievably absurd to see in the year 2022. But I must say that, yes, even independently, despite, apart from, Ukrainian governmental messages and observations, we as a journalist, we as people who live near all these places in Kyiv and all other cities and towns of northern Ukraine, we have heard many things that now get confirmed as Russian atrocities. For instance, when it comes to Bucha, we heard rumors, as regular people heard rumors that Russians are looking for men. They are checking documents. They are doing something really nasty to local people. So we got those rumors from people who managed to make it out of the besieged city of the Russian occupation. So what we are seeing now is just the outcome of all those things that we have been rumored
Illia,
for many days of this occupation.
I'm sorry, a couple of days ago,
yes.
you tweeted, quote, when this war is over, I'm going to quit war journalism. I'm going to get a quiet, remote place to live, and we'll be writing stories of whales and polar explorers. Obviously, the work you're doing there is important. It is dangerous work. It is emotionally draining work. So tell us about that emotional impact that this war is having on you as you try to balance the journalism with watching your homeland, your countrymen, your countrywomen come under attack.
Yeah, I wrote this tweet following the moment when I saw a picture of a very young boy, like 4-year-old boy, whose name was Sasha, and he was killed by Russian soldiers. He was a beautiful child, really, very, angely, very nice looking, holding a cat. His mom was sending like a very rich Instagram with lots of his pictures, like a very beautiful child. So after that, I decided that I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just taking this toll until this war is over, emotional toll. Just because, in many ways, journalism in Ukraine is not simply the service to your community, the service to your nation, not the government, but the nation, the people that you meet every single day in the streets. Yeah, I would say it's not hard for us to distinguish, journalism from emotions. Just because in many ways this anger, this resentment from what we see, what the foreign occupiers are doing to this country, they fuel us up in terms of exposing these things. But we have this very strong institute of reputation inside the country. So we all remember to stay accurate and reasonable about what we report, with not go in full-fledged emotions. So yeah, the resentment, the pain that we see and also feel ourselves, this war, it directly affects even us as human beings, not necessarily as journalists. So this anger is just fuels us up, gives us strength to work more. But yeah, it's very exhausting, I would say, yeah.
And Illia, in another tweet, you talk about some of the frustration that you feel and that many journalists are feeling, really, including our own CBS journalists who are over there, about how well documented this conflict is in terms of the Russian atrocities being caught on video. But yet Russia is still, largely denying many of these videos and images, saying that they're not real. What do you say to that? How do you handle that sort of frustration?
Well, I'm absolutely not surprised about Russia being so absurdly in denial of those things that they do, because it's this thing that we've been seeing for like 8 years, since the very beginning of this war, and right now we're just having the active phase, the most brutal phase. We had this absolutely the same thing when, for instance, the Malaysian flight was downed over Donbass, back in 2014. The reason why this happened and 300 people were killed, innocent people were killed, was absolutely obvious. There are lots of evidence, lots of pieces of evidence behind, the Russian guilt behind that. But, Russia battered the media space with lots of absurd theories, conspiracy theories, lots of speculations about it, many of them absolutely absurd and unbelievable, just because they needed this, buzz around us, just to persuade, Russian audience that it's not crystal clear, it's not obvious what had happened and who did that. Absolutely the same thing is happening in Bucha. I mean, more or less sound and clear military would simply admit some facts of atrocities and say soldiers committing atrocities will be punished. It's not acceptable, something like that, which is what, by the way, Ukraine is doing. We have seen some facts of beatings of Russian prisoners of war by Ukrainian soldiers. And what Ukrainian is doing is that they admit in these violations and saying that everybody will be punished involved in this incident. But what Russia does in regarding these atrocities and many other violations of international laws is just it goes in absolute denial and trying to conceal something that cannot be concealed, absolutely cannot be concealed.
Yes, absolutely. And Illia Ponomarenko with the Kyiv Independent, we thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate all the work you're doing.